Well, no prizes for guessing the dramatic high point of the testimony. It came at the end of Tom Watson's questioning of James Murdoch.
Mr. Murdoch, you must be the first mafia boss in history who didn't know he was running a criminal enterprise.
Mr. Watson, please. I think that's inappropriate. Mr. Chairman.
Have you finished now? All right.
Damian Collins.
It's really interesting, Sarah, you know, watching some of the comment there has been, you know, on Twitter and elsewhere about that moment. A lot of commentators felt that Tom Watson went over the top there. I thought it was interesting. The reason I played it on afterwards there was because you could see John Whittingdale, the chairman, you could see James Murdoch in effect sort of appealing to him to actually come down hard on his colleague Tom Watson. He didn't. He just said, "Have you finished, Tom?" And then moved on to the next person. So clearly he and other committee members seemed to feel that that was perfectly fair to be questioning James Murdoch in an extremely robust manner as he was there. I think, as I say, a lot of people thought that was rather sort of showboating from the best-known member of the committee. My own feeling was that perhaps some of the unsung members of the committee had better days and actually more successful in terms of getting substance in what was a pretty thorough going over for James Murdoch today. I mean, if you look at one of the key questions, this whole inquiry is about whether or not the committee over the years has been misled by News Corp, News International, and whether by any specific individuals. Clearly, James Murdoch was very anxious to make it clear where he thought the blame should lie today.
So was it Mr. Crone, a respected lawyer and in-house legal advisor for many years?
Who did what?
Who misled this committee?
As I said to you, as I wrote to you and I issued a public statement, certainly in the evidence that they gave to you in 2011, with respect to my knowledge, I thought it was inconsistent and not right, and I dispute it vigorously.
So you think Mr. Crone misled us?
That it follows that I do, yes.
And so do you think Mr. Myler misled us as well?
I believe their testimony was misleading, and I dispute it.
Do you think Mr. Pike...
And also James Murdoch said when it came to Colin Myler, the former editor of the paper, he made it absolutely crystal clear where he thought that he had been wrong in his actions down the years.
If he had known, which is an if, that there was wider spread criminality or that there was evidence or sufficient suspicion of that, I should think he should have told me those things.
And James Murdoch, of course, was on extremely safe ground when he was harshly critical of Tom Crone for actually hiring private investigators to follow the lawyers of some of the hacking families.
And I want to say for the record, it is appalling. It is something I would never condone, and the company should never condone. And it was shocking when I found it out, and it's just unacceptable.
When did you discover?
But what about James Murdoch's key position in terms of what he knew about this email, the devastating and incriminating email that as far back as 2008 made it absolutely clear to many people that it wasn't just Clive Goodman who was involved in hacking. We know that both Tom Crone and Colin Myler have said in their own testimony that they made it clear to James Murdoch in a meeting in June 2008 the import of that particular email. He said that that is not right.
I was made aware that there was evidence that the transcript existed and that it was on behalf of the News of the World. It's dual importance, if you will, that it was the Neville email, that it also was perhaps the beginning of suspicion that other individuals were involved at the News of the World was not described to me, and the email was not shown to me either.
Right, so you did not see it.
I guess the key thing is, though, that he says he wasn't the full importance of the email wasn't described to him. But many people, including members on the committee, would have felt that, look, if he was told that there was testimony, that there was transcripts of phone-hacked conversations in that email, shouldn't it have been absolutely evident to him right at that moment, just to himself, that this blew the whole thing wide open? That is what Paul Farrelly was getting at, because he was saying, look, this wasn't Clive Goodman who had hacked these phone conversations, the former royal editor. This was to do with Gordon Taylor, the head of the PFA.
The one thing that really, right from the outset of this, that really just showed us, and I think any 10-year-old really, that the News of the World's line did not stack up was the fact that Gordon Taylor was not a member of the royal family or the royal household. So, did you not say, but he's not royal?
I think the point here is not so much whether or not I was told who Gordon Taylor was, but really what when I came to News Corporation in 2007, What didn't happen was I did not receive a briefing on all the matters of 2006. It was December 2007.
And that was very unusual there to hear James Murdoch umming and ahhing in the way that he was during that particular answer, because generally he was extremely fluent. He was really on top of the detail, much more on top of it than he had been when he was with his father. Actually, I wonder whether, having Rupert Murdoch there and obviously finding the questioning difficult was something of a distraction for him. But I don't think that should distract us from the fact that he is likely still to come in for some stinging criticism for the committee in terms of perhaps his competence, in terms of the way in which he led the investigation, but also on not really understanding in the way that perhaps he should have done the importance of that email back in 2008. To give you an idea, I think, of the tone that the committee is likely to take, not just Tom Watson, who obviously has very, very strong feelings, but is only one individual on the committee, listen to a question that John Whittingdale put to James Murdoch earlier on, the committee chair. This is courteous but scathing.
We said we found it inconceivable that only one person was involved, and that we said the company was guilty of collective amnesia. It was published, so obviously evidence of 2009. The result of that was that your papers described this committee, and in particular members of this committee, as a disgrace to Parliament. Wouldn't it have been more appropriate when a parliamentary committee reached that conclusion for you to have another internal investigation rather than rubbishing the committee?
I think
that was one that James Murdoch just had to take on the chin. That was, as I say, very courteous but pretty devastating for him. And I think that we will have to see where the report goes. But I would anticipate, Sarah, that it will be pretty critical of James Murdoch for all that he gave an extremely polished performance today.